Okay, we are turning our attention now from microeconomics to macroeconomics. Macroeconomics is the study of a whole economy and not just a micro look at firms and individuals. All right. So, one of the first things we have to talk about is how we measure an economy. And that's where the discussion of gross domestic product comes in. Gross domestic product, you probably hear it in the news all the time talking about the GDP and the changes in the GDP. It measures the total income of everyone in the economy, and it measures the total expenditure. Actually, you measure the expenditure, the income has to be equal to it, and we'll see why that is in this next slide. This is what's called the circular flow model of an economy. And I want to pick a starting point. I'll pick firms. Here are the firms that make products and provide services in an economy. They purchase from the factors market, factors of production market. They purchase labor, land, and capital. Okay, capital is equipment. Labor, of course, is the people that work for them, and land, of course, is the place where they put their buildings. All right, and they purchase those factors of production from the households. Okay, the people that they hire are the people that are living in the households around the United States, for example. So that gives the households money. So now the households can go to the markets and buy goods and services that firms provide. Okay, one of the firms hopefully is the one that they work for, but then they buy other things than what their firm produces. All right, so the revenue from the markets then flows back to the firms. So that's the circular model. All right, to put that in equation form, it looks like this. Y is what economists use to denote income. So GDP would equal Y because it's the nation's income. It equals C, the consumption of goods and services, the money that is spent on consuming goods and services. I is the investment that's made by businesses in buildings and in equipment to produce the products and services they produce. And G is government purchases, what the government comes into the market and buys. And NX is net exports, which means I take the value of the things that I export and I subtract from it the value of the things that I import. And that gives me net exports. So let's look at an example here. This is the gross domestic product of the United States in the year 2012. And up here is the total, $15 trillion, 15,676, all right? And of that, $11 trillion was consumption. That's us spending our money buying goods and services. 2 trillion of it is investment made by companies buying equipment and buildings. The government comes in and buys 3 trillion, and our net exports were negative, which means we exported less than we imported. And that added together, these numbers down here added together equal to 15,676. You could put it into a per person number, divide the number by the number of people in the country, and you come up with 49,923. And we can see some charts later that show that that's the strongest economy in the world. All right, so that's how you use the circular flow model, which then shows you the formula that explains the circular flow model and how we calculate GDP. But there's more to it than that. There's two GDPs. The one you hear on the news all the time, they're talking about is the nominal GDP, which means in name only. It is the number that is most people are most familiar with. But another number is the real GDP. What it is taking the GDP that I have in this year and deflating it, taking out inflation from another previous year to see what it is in those dollars. Okay, and here's an example showing how that's done. Here is the GDP being calculated each year for 2013 and 14 and 15. So the price of hot dogs is $1 in 2013. $2 for a hamburger. There were 100 hot dogs, 50 hamburgers. You multiply it all out, you get $200. And then the next year it ends up being $600 because the price of hot dogs increased from $1 to 2, price of hamburgers increased from 2 to 3, and you multiply it out and you get $600. And then again another price increase in 2015, and more hot dogs being sold and more hamburgers being sold, you end up with $1,200 for your nominal GDP. Now, if we would say, well, I would like to know what the real GDP is. I mean, those are inflated dollars. I want to know how well we're doing in terms of total output compared to a previous year. Okay, so we'll use 2013. The prices are $1 all the way through. See that? We are using the 2013 prices, but we're using the volume 150 of the second year, not the 100 of the first year. So the volumes are the same per year, but the prices stay at the 2013 price. And when we do that and multiply it out, we get a real GDP of 200, obviously in the first year. In the second year, the real GDP is 350, and in the final year, the real GDP is 500. All right, so down here, it shows how to calculate the GDP deflator. In 2013, it's 200 over 200 times 100 equals 100. 2014, for example, is the 600 we got up here, minus or divided by the 350 we get down here, times 100 is 171. All right, so if we wanted to use the deflator to see what my GDP, my real GDP is in 2014, I could take that amount, the 600, divided by the 171, and I would get 350. That's how that works. All right, so the real GDP is taking out the effects of inflation. You see, if prices are all that increased and we're making the same amount of stuff, that is significant to know because you haven't really employed any more people. You're not really producing more things. It's just that you've raised the price of things. So what a country wants is to see the real GDP increasing over time so that they can measure that they are truly making more things. They're being more productive with their workforce. Okay? So the real GDP over recent history, well, first of all, we have to note that a recession is technically defined as 2 consecutive quarters of a falling GDP. And when that happens, real GDP will also decline. There will be lower income, there will be rising unemployment, falling profits, and increased bankruptcies. The economy has gone the wrong way. All right, now here is GDP, a relationship between GDP and the quality of life. And now we're talking about the nominal GDP here. The United States at 43 trillion, life expectancy in the United States 79 years, schooling 12 years, and they're using another quality of life measurement. They're calling it to satisfied with the water quality. 90% are. Okay, Germany. These are the high performing economies. Germany, Japan, United States, and the United Kingdom are the 4 biggest economies, the most productive. Russia, really, it does not produce much more than Mexico. All right, Mexico is considered a third world country. But look at the life expectancy in Russia. And what this chart's trying to show is that the higher the GDP, the better the health of the people, and the better they're educated. Okay? So obviously it behooves a country to have their GDP increasing. Okay, so that is the discussion on GDP and real GDP. This is why it's important to us. Okay, thank you. If you have any questions, let me know.